In breaking news, the Vatican has confirmed Pope Francis has died. Just hours after an appearance during the holiest weekend of the Christian calendar, the Catholic world is in mourning. He had been in critical condition due to double pneumonia and a lung infection.
The Vatican is in chaos. A hidden letter from Pope Francis has just been uncovered, and what's inside is sending shockwaves through the Catholic Church. A secret resignation, a hinted successor, and warnings that could change everything we thought we knew about the future of faith. Why was this letter hidden? Who was meant to read it? And why are top cardinals scrambling to control the fallout? This isn't just history. This is a crisis unfolding in real time. Stay with us as we reveal the secrets Vatican City never wanted you to know. Because this story is far from over.
The victims of discrimination, violence, abuse, exploitation, and human trafficking. The Filipino migrant workers and their families. The survivors of natural calamities and armed conflicts. The non-Christian Catholics. The followers of non-Christian religions. The promoters of peace, especially in our beloved Mindanao. And the whole of creation that groans. All of us want to say again and again, maraming salamat po, Santo Padre. You often end your meetings and encounters by saying, vi chiedo di pregare per me.
Breaking the silence. Pope Francis's hidden letter. Discovered. It started like any other quiet day in Vatican City. But deep within the Apostolic Palace, a discovery was made that has since thrown the entire church into a storm of whispers, questions, and crisis meetings. Vatican aides, going through Pope Francis's private effects amid growing health concerns, stumbled upon a letter, sealed, handwritten, and locked away in a personal drawer. This wasn't just any letter. It was marked with the papal seal and labeled simply, "In case of emergency." The moment this letter came to light, panic spread quickly through the corridors of the Vatican. Staff described a flurry of hushed conversations and immediate lockdowns of certain records. Even high-ranking cardinals were left in the dark. The Pope's most trusted inner circle moved fast to contain what they clearly considered explosive. What could possibly be in this letter that would create such urgency? What shocked many was how well this letter had been hidden. Not even top church officials were aware of its existence. It wasn't part of the usual documents prepared by the Secretariat of State, nor was it logged in the archives. Some began to speculate. Was this Pope Francis's resignation? Or was it something much deeper? A warning? A final instruction? Perhaps even a revelation about who he believed should take the church forward? As news began to leak from insiders, first to Italian media, then globally, the Vatican entered full damage control mode. But the truth was already slipping out. This letter could shake the very structure of the church, one anonymous source claimed. Another whispered, "It's not just a resignation. It's a roadmap." Whatever it was, the existence of this hidden document broke centuries of Vatican tradition. And worse, it meant one undeniable thing. Pope Francis had been preparing for an outcome the public never saw coming. And then, like a thunderclap that confirmed everyone's worst suspicions, it happened. The contents of the letter were partially revealed, and inside it, Pope Francis made a confession that would change everything. Let's talk about the resignation no one saw coming.
The victims of discrimination, violence, abuse, exploitation, and human trafficking. The Filipino migrant workers and their families. The survivors of natural calamities and armed conflicts. the non-Christian Catholics, the followers of non-Christian religions, the promoters of peace, especially in our beloved Mindanao, and the whole of creation that groans. All of us want to say again and again, maraming salamat po, Santo Padre. You often end your meetings and encounters by saying, "Vi chiedo di pregare per me."
The resignation no one saw coming. For centuries, the papacy was seen as a role that ended only in death. That all changed when Pope Benedict XVI resigned in 2013, becoming the first pope in modern history to step down voluntarily. Still, few imagined it could happen again, until now. In the letter discovered after his health scare, Pope Francis admitted that he had already written and signed a resignation letter in case of medical incapacity. This wasn't a recent idea. In fact, Francis had quietly made this decision years earlier, entrusting the document to one of the Vatican's senior cardinals. According to insiders, the letter was given in private, with instructions that it should only be used if he could no longer lead with clarity. "I have already signed my resignation," the Pope once admitted publicly, and handed it to the Cardinal Secretary of State. But most dismissed this as a hypothetical, until now. What makes this situation even more dramatic is the comparison to Pope Benedict's resignation. Benedict held a press conference and made his decision public, giving the Church time to prepare. Francis chose secrecy, no announcement, no timeline. Just one quiet decision sealed away, waiting to be discovered. It raises a haunting question. Had he grown tired of the growing pressure, the criticism, the internal resistance? Or was he simply preparing the Church for what he knew was inevitable? His decision adds a new layer to the current Vatican panic. If the Pope has already laid the groundwork for departure, who holds the power to activate it? And why now, just as the Church faces internal tension and global challenges? One thing is clear. This was never about surrender. It was about safeguarding the Church. As one cardinal said, he didn't write that letter because he was weak. He wrote it because he's a leader.
Government, the military, the police, the security people, from the mass communications, from the parishes and the many benefactors who worked tirelessly for your pastoral visit. And in the name of every Filipino whom you have strengthened in faith these past days, I once again say to you, muchísimas gracias, tante grazie. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat po. I know many people want to say thank you to you. The street children, the orphans, the widows, the homeless, the informal settlers, the laborers, the farmers, the fisher folk.
But as shocking as the resignation was, it wasn't the biggest secret inside that letter. Buried deep in the text, Francis did something no pope has dared to do in centuries. He hinted at the pain he believed should follow in his footsteps, and that one name has sent shockwaves across the Catholic world. The successor. Revelation. A name hidden in the letter. In perhaps the most stunning part of the hidden letter, Pope Francis did something many considered unthinkable. He appeared to name his preferred successor. For over 600 years, popes have left that decision solely to the College of Cardinals. But Francis, never one to follow the script, hinted at the kind of leader the Church needs, and even included a name that left many jaws on the floor. The name Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. While he didn't explicitly say Tagle should be next, sources confirm that the letter praised him heavily. Francis reportedly described him as a shepherd of the people with a heart aligned with Christ and a vision rooted in mercy. The language left little room for doubt. This wasn't just praise. This was direction. This was legacy building. By doing this, Pope Francis shattered one of the Church's most sacred traditions, neutrality in succession. The Vatican has long held that no pope should influence the election of his successor. The process is meant to be free of bias, guided by prayer, not politics. But Francis's letter has now thrown that process into chaos. Will the College of Cardinals ignore the late Pope's words, or will they feel bound to honor them? What complicates matters further is that Tagle already has strong support among the more progressive cardinals. Known for his humility, his global outreach, and his alignment with Francis's reforms, Tagle is a natural continuation of the Pope's vision. But now, with this endorsement, even his critics are rethinking their strategy. One Vatican insider said it best. This isn't just a recommendation, it's a succession plan. And with that, the Vatican isn't just dealing with a health crisis, it's dealing with a political earthquake, one that's shaking the very foundations of tradition, hierarchy, and what it means to choose a pope in the modern age. So now, the Church stands at a crossroads, torn between its ancient traditions and a decade of transformation led by a pope who refused to play by the old rules. To understand why this letter carries so much weight, we need to look back at the legacy Francis leaves behind. A decade of change, the legacy Francis leaves behind. When Pope Francis stepped onto the balcony in 2013 as the new leader of the Catholic Church, few could have predicted just how much he would shake things up. From day one, Francis made it clear this wasn't going to be a papacy of grand traditions and distant authority. Instead, it would be a decade of bold change, uncomfortable conversations, and a church that dared to face the modern world head-on. For 11 years, Pope Francis tackled issues many before him avoided. He spoke out against poverty, environmental destruction, and inequality. He pushed for transparency in Vatican finances, demanded accountability in the face of scandals, and opened doors for discussions on topics long considered untouchable. His message was simple but powerful: a church that is poor and for the poor. But change never comes easy, especially within an institution as ancient as the Catholic Church. Francis faced constant resistance from conservative factions who saw his reforms as dangerous. Every step forward sparked debates, headlines, and even quiet rebellion within the Vatican walls. His efforts to modernize were praised by millions, but criticized by those who feared losing tradition. And now, with the discovery of his hidden letter, that legacy has become even more controversial. By hinting at his successor and leaving behind a resignation plan, Francis didn't just end his papacy, he extended his influence beyond it. Some cardinals see this as a final act of leadership. Others see it as overstepping. Regardless of opinion, one thing is undeniable: Pope Francis changed the Church forever. Whether the next leader continues his path or tries to reverse it, the mark Francis left behind won't fade easily. But if there's one person who embodies everything Francis stood for, it's the man now at the center of global attention. With the hidden letter pointing in his direction, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle has become more than just a name. He's become the symbol of the Church's possible future. But who is he really?
Church and its reputation, namely in addressing the climate crisis, his endeavour to promote unity, and his historic apology to survivors of sexual abuse. His final days were spent in Rome's Gemelli Hospital, battling a prolonged asthmatic respiratory crisis while being treated for pneumonia and a complex lung infection. He'd received blood transfusions after tests showed low counts of platelets, which are needed for clotting. Nine's Brett McLeod begins our coverage of this breaking news.
265 popes had come before him, but his was a papacy of firsts. The first pope from the Americas, the first pope from the Southern Hemisphere, the first Jesuit in the role. Born in Buenos Aires in 1936, Jorge Mario Bergoglio was the son of Italian migrants who escaped fascist Italy. His father worked on the railways. He was a born fighter. When he was 21, an infection meant part of his lung had to be removed. Jorge graduated as a chemical technician. His first jobs were as a janitor and a bar bouncer before choosing the path to the priesthood. He was ordained in 1969.
Demos un signo a esta ciudad de Buenos Aires.
He became Archbishop of Buenos Aires.
Familias que están desunidas, corazones que están peleados.
And in 2001, he was made a cardinal by Pope John Paul II. He held several key administrative positions before, in 2013, at the age of 76, his fellow cardinals elected him leader of the world's 1.3 billion Catholics.
Cardinal Tagle, the man at the center of the storm. When whispers of Pope Francis's hidden letter began to circulate, one name kept rising above the noise: Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. Almost overnight, Tagle went from respected Vatican figure to the most talked-about man in Rome. Why? Because if the letter's hints are to be believed, he may very well be the next pope. Tagle isn't new to the spotlight. Known for his warm, humble nature and deep compassion, he has long been seen as a reflection of Pope Francis's ideals. Like Francis, Tagle champions social justice, speaks for the marginalized, and believes in a church that walks beside its people, not above them. His alignment with Francis's vision is no coincidence. It's what made him a trusted ally, and, perhaps now, the chosen successor. Over the years, Tagle has climbed the ranks of the Vatican, not through political games, but through genuine leadership and connection with people across the world. His role as prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples placed him at the heart of the Church's mission, spreading faith while addressing real-world issues like poverty and inequality.
Taking the name Francis, the patron saint of animals and helper of the poor.
Buonasera.
He set the tone early. On the night he was elected, he passed up a ride in the papal limousine and travelled on a bus back to his hotel, and chose to stay in a simple apartment, passing up the much larger official residence, saying, "I can't live here, I would die. I need people." Pope Francis shunned the lavish regalia of his predecessors and preferred the common touch.
I think a lot of people that was very far away from the church returned to the church because this man can speak in a very simple way to everybody.
His mission was to transform the long-standing conservative image of the Catholic Church. He spoke out for society's most marginalised and called for urgent action on climate change. In 2016, he gave priests the power to forgive women who undergo abortions. He was hell-bent on rooting out corruption in the Vatican's finances and dealing with the horrific legacy of child sex abuse within the Church. And he took his message around the world. A strong advocate for interfaith discussions, he visited more than 60 countries. His travels documented in an award-winning production. The pandemic couldn't stop him. War, the only barrier, leaving him to pray for the victims of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and it brought him to tears. Pope Francis gained a reputation for being approachable and down to earth, often described as the People's Pope, the Pope of the 99%.
But with great attention comes great pressure. The moment his name was linked to Pope Francis's letter, Tagle found himself at the center of a storm. Supporters see him as the future, the man who can continue Francis's reforms and lead the Church into a more compassionate era. Critics, however, fear that his leadership would mean more change, more disruption, and a departure from traditional values. Could Tagle truly be the chosen one? The answer isn't simple. What's clear is that he now carries the weight of expectation, not just from those within the Vatican, but from millions of Catholics around the world who wonder if he's ready to step into the most powerful spiritual role on earth. But to understand why Pope Francis may have placed his trust in Tagle, we need to look beyond titles and Vatican politics. We need to go back to the streets of Manila, where a young priest began a journey rooted not in power, but in service. Let's explore the humble beginnings of the man many believe could be the next pope, The making of a future pope, Tagle's humble beginnings. Long before Cardinal Tagle became a global figure, he was just Luis Antonio, a boy growing up in the vibrant, chaotic heart of Manila. Born into a modest family in 1957, Tagle's world wasn't filled with riches or privilege. Instead, it was filled with faith, community, and a deep understanding of what it meant to live among everyday people. From a young age, Tagle showed something special. Not ambition for power, but a natural gift for empathy. He wasn't the type to preach from a pedestal. He listened. He helped neighbors, volunteered at his local parish, and quickly became known as the person you could turn to for both spiritual guidance and simple human kindness. It wasn't long before people started calling him the priest with a smile. As he pursued his studies in philosophy and theology, Tagle's vision for the church became clear. He didn't dream of grandeur or Vatican titles. He dreamed of a church that met people where they were, in their struggles, in their hopes, and in their daily lives. That mission took him from Manila to Rome, where he earned his doctorate in sacred theology. But even in the halls of the Vatican, he never lost his connection to the people. Ordained as a priest in 1982, Tagle quickly stood out, not for political maneuvering, but for his genuine commitment to service. His sermons were simple, yet profound. His presence brought comfort, whether he was speaking to world leaders or sitting beside the poor. It was this authenticity that caught the attention of Pope Francis years later. Tagle's humble beginnings weren't just a footnote in his story. They were the foundation of everything he stood for. And now, as his name echoes through the Vatican as a potential successor, many believe it's those very roots that make him the right choice to lead a church in need of compassion, humility, and renewal. But Tagle's influence didn't stop in the Philippines. His journey took him across continents, where he became a voice not just for Catholics, but for anyone seeking a more compassionate world. How did he rise to become a global symbol of modern faith? Let's find out. Global impact: how Tagle became a voice for modern Catholicism. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle didn't just rise through the ranks of the Catholic Church. He reshaped how people viewed church leadership in the modern world. While many Vatican figures remained tied to European traditions, Tagle stood out as a symbol of a universal church, one that spoke to people in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and beyond. Tagle's leadership extended far beyond the grand halls of Rome. Whether it was advocating for refugees fleeing war zones, championing the rights of the poor, or speaking boldly about climate change, Tagle made it clear. Faith wasn't just about rituals. It was about action. At international summits, he didn't hesitate to call out world leaders, urging them to move from empty promises to meaningful change. Faith without compassion is just noise, he once said, a line that resonated across borders. When scandals rocked the church, Tagle didn't hide behind silence. He addressed the crises with transparency, acknowledging the pain of survivors and pushing for reforms that many believed were long overdue. His approach wasn't defensive. It was honest, humble, and focused on healing. This global presence, combined with his deep connection to communities often overlooked by Vatican elites, made Tagle a beacon for a more compassionate, connected church. For millions, he represented hope, a leader who understood that in a world facing poverty, division, and environmental collapse, the church's role was to stand with the people, not above them. But with influence comes opposition. While many praised Tagle's modern outlook, conservative voices within the Vatican began to worry. Was Tagle's vision too progressive, too far from tradition? These questions are now fueling debates as his name circles the papal discussions. Yet, perhaps Tagle's most remarkable gift isn't just his global leadership, it's his ability to connect with the future of the church, young people. In a world where many feel disconnected from religion, Tagle speaks their language. Let's explore how he became a bridge to the next generation. Youth and faith. Tagle's bridge to the next generation. In today's fast-paced world, where social media trends come and go in seconds, many religious leaders struggle to connect with younger generations. But Cardinal Tagle? He became a rare voice that young Catholics, and even non-Catholics, actually listened to. At World Youth Day events, Tagle didn't stand at the podium delivering stiff sermons. Instead, he spoke from the heart, addressing real issues young people face: identity, purpose, mental health, and the search for meaning in a chaotic world. One of his most famous lines still echoes across youth groups worldwide: "You are not the future of the church. You are its present." In that moment, thousands of young believers felt truly seen. Tagle embraced Pope Francis's vision of a church that listens rather than lectures. He encouraged open dialogue, welcomed difficult questions, and reminded young people that faith isn't about perfection. It's about compassion, community, and action. Whether he was chatting informally with students or delivering powerful messages at international gatherings, Tagle had a way of making ancient teachings feel relevant in modern times. He also understood the power of technology. While others shied away from digital platforms, Tagle used them to reach young audiences where they already were, online. His videos, interviews, and messages spread across continents, inspiring a generation that many thought had turned away from faith. By making the church approachable, Tagle didn't just revive interest among youth. He reignited a sense of belonging. But this approach wasn't without critics. Traditionalists argued that engaging too much with modern culture risked watering down church values. Still, for millions of young Catholics, Tagle represents a church that understands them. A church that speaks with them, not at them. But with every step forward, Tagle faces growing resistance. The Vatican is not easily swayed by popularity or modern ideas. Deep within its walls, powerful forces are pushing back against change. So, what stands in Tagle's way? Let's uncover the roadblocks that could stop him from becoming the next pope. The roadblocks: resistance, politics, and old traditions. For all of Cardinal Tagle's charisma, global influence, and connection to youth, one reality remains. The Vatican is a place where tradition runs deep, and change is often met with suspicion. As Tagle's name gains momentum, conservative factions within the church are quietly organizing to push back. Many senior cardinals view Tagle's progressive stance with caution. His focus on social justice, openness to interfaith dialogue, and willingness to modernize church practices have sparked fears that he could steer Catholicism too far from its historic roots. To them, Tagle represents a shift they're not ready to accept, a move toward a more flexible, less rigid church. Cultural tensions also play a role. While the global south, regions like Asia, Africa, and Latin America, is now home to the majority of the world's Catholics, leadership within the Vatican has long been dominated by Europeans. The idea of a Filipino pope excites many, but for others entrenched in centuries of European tradition, it's a difficult change to embrace. Adding to these challenges is the complex web of Vatican politics. Behind the scenes, alliances are being formed, strategies whispered. The conclave to elect a new pope isn't just a spiritual process, it's a political one. And those resistant to Tagle's vision are already working to ensure that the next leader will pull the church back toward conservatism. The question now isn't just whether Tagle is the right leader, it's whether he can overcome the weight of an institution designed to resist rapid change. Is the church truly ready for a non-European, progressive pope? Or will tradition hold firm, blocking the path forward? And if Tagle is to succeed, he must first face a lineup of powerful rivals, cardinals with their own visions for the future of the church. Who are they, and how will they shape this critical battle for leadership? Let's meet the contenders standing in his way. The rival cardinals. Who stands in Tagle's way? While Cardinal Tagle's name is dominating conversations, he isn't the only contender for the papacy. The Vatican's corridors are buzzing with speculation about who else could rise to the throne of St. Peter. The College of Cardinals is filled with experienced leaders, each bringing their own vision for the Church's future. And make no mistake, this will be one of the most competitive conclaves in recent history. First, there's Cardinal Pietro Parolin of Italy, the Vatican's seasoned diplomat. Known for his sharp political skills and deep ties to international leaders, Parolin represents stability. He's seen as someone who could steer the church through global tensions without shaking tradition. Then there's Cardinal Peter Turkson from Ghana, a strong advocate for social justice and environmental issues. Turkson, like Tagley, reflects the growing influence of the Global South, but with a different approach, more cautious when it comes to internal church reforms. Cardinal Péter Erdő from Hungary and Cardinal Marc Ouellet from Canada also stand as formidable figures. Erdő is a canon law expert, deeply rooted in conservative theology. Ouellet, while respected globally, is known for his traditionalist stance, appealing to those who wish to see the Church return to stricter values. Finally, Cardinal Christoph Schönborn of Austria, a theological heavyweight, offers a balance between tradition and modern thinking, but without the progressive edge that Tagle brings. This conclave won't just be about faith, it will be about politics, geography, and ideology. With Europe's long-standing dominance, many wonder if the Cardinals will revert to old habits or embrace a leader who reflects the modern global face of Catholicism. But no matter who is chosen, the reality is clear. The next pope will inherit more than a title. They'll inherit a church facing some of the greatest challenges in its history. Let's take a closer look at the immense weight waiting for whoever steps into St. Peter's shoes. The weight of the papacy, challenges facing the next pope. Becoming pope isn't just about wearing white robes and addressing crowds in St. Peter's Square. It's about carrying the hopes, fears, and expectations of 1.3 billion Catholics worldwide. And in today's world, that responsibility is heavier than ever. The next pope will face a church still reeling from unresolved scandals, especially those involving clerical abuse. While reforms have been made, many believe true accountability is far from complete. Restoring trust will require more than words. It will demand decisive action. Then there's the growing divide between progressive and conservative forces within Catholicism. From debates over LGBTQ+ inclusion to the role of women in the church, the next leader will walk a tightrope, trying to unify a deeply divided institution. Outside church walls, global crises await. Poverty, migration, war, climate change. The Pope is expected to be a moral voice in all these areas, speaking not just to Catholics, but to the entire world. Add to that the challenge of declining faith in the West, where churches grow emptier by the year, and it's clear the next Pope will need to rethink how the Church connects with modern society. And let's not forget, the digital age means every word, every gesture, every decision will be scrutinized instantly by millions. Leading the Catholic Church today isn't just a spiritual mission, it's surviving under a microscope. As these challenges loom, the Vatican is still grappling with the immediate crisis, the fallout from Pope Francis's hidden letter. Behind closed doors, efforts are underway to control the narrative. But can they really keep a lid on a story this big? Vatican in crisis mode, controlling the narrative. Since the discovery of Pope Francis's hidden letter, the Vatican has been in full crisis mode. Officials are working overtime to manage what information reaches the public. Statements have been vague, carefully crafted to downplay the letter's significance, but with leaks spreading fast, control is slipping through their fingers. Inside the Vatican, a fierce debate rages. Should they embrace transparency or stick to tradition and secrecy? Some argue that revealing the full contents of the letter would honor Pope Francis's legacy of openness. Others fear that too much disclosure could destabilize the conclave, spark political interference, or deepen divisions within the Church. There's also concern about external pressures. With the world's media focused on the Vatican and political leaders weighing in, some fear that the sacred process of choosing the next pope could be influenced by public opinion rather than prayerful reflection. The truth is, Pope Francis's letter has done more than name a possible successor. It has exposed the internal struggles of an institution caught between the past and the future. And as much as the Vatican tries to steer the story, one question remains. Will the late Pope's wishes guide the Church, or will they be quietly buried under centuries of tradition? And so, the Catholic Church stands at a defining moment. The hidden letter, the debates, the uncertainty. It all points to one thing. Change is coming, But what will that change look like? Let's explore what this crossroads moment means for the future of the Church. The future of the Catholic Church. A crossroads moment. The discovery of Pope Francis's hidden letter has done more than spark panic. It has forced the Catholic Church to face a fundamental question. Which path will it choose? Will it continue along the progressive road Francis paved, embracing compassion, inclusion, and reform? Or will it retreat into the safety of conservatism, clinging to old traditions in uncertain times? If Cardinal Tagle rises to the papacy, it could signal a bold continuation of Francis's vision, a church that listens more, judges less, and speaks out on global issues beyond its walls. A church that feels alive, relevant, and connected to the people it serves. But if the conclave opts for a more traditional leader, it could mark a return to stricter doctrines, tighter control, and a focus on preserving the past rather than adapting to the present. Either way, this hidden letter has already shaped history. It revealed a pope who wasn't afraid to guide the Church even after his death. It exposed the tensions within the Vatican, and it placed the weight of change firmly on the shoulders of those left behind. So, is the Vatican panicking because of what Pope Francis wrote? Or because they know that no matter how hard they try, they can't stop the winds of change? The future of Catholicism is being written right now, and the world is watching. Pope Francis's hidden letter has been found, but the questions it raises still echo through the halls of the Vatican. Will the Church honor his final wishes, or bury them beneath centuries of tradition? Is Cardinal Tagle truly the future, or will resistance win the day? One thing is certain: Catholicism stands at a turning point, and the world is watching every move. What do you think lies ahead for the Church? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more breaking stories that reveal what's really happening behind closed doors. See you next time.